Thanks, everybody. It's my pleasure to welcome you all to the annual general meeting for RYA Scotland 2025. For a quick introduction, if you don't know, my name is Brian Wilson and I am the chair here at RYA Scotland. I would just reiterate the point that the automated machine said a second ago that this meeting is being recorded and we do publish this afterwards on the RYA Scotland YouTube channel. So if I could just ask for good online meeting etiquette, basically remain on mute unless you're asking a question or you're one of our presenting team. That would be highly appreciated. And with that said, if everyone is comfortable, we'll jump in. This is our agenda. It was circulated in advance along with the minutes, the finances and the impact report, which we'll probably touch on all of those as we go through the evening. I'm going to start with apologies. Pauline, do you want to just take us through apologies that we have?
Got apologies from Duncan Tannehill, Gordon Daly, Alan Kohler and Stuart Ainsley.
In an RYA meeting. It's okay. It's on mute. Yeah.
Right, there we go. So any other folks who need to submit apologies or want to submit an apology? So for the record, I'm not hearing any. If there are, and I'm just missing them, if you pop it, I think there's a chat screen available for this session. Just stick it in the chat. You can add them to that. So with that, going on to the minutes from the 2024 annual general meeting, and quite a sizable document. My normal process at board meetings and things is I'll just go through the whole thing page by page. If there's any issues you want to raise as we go through it, just stop me and we'll take your question on the minutes and we'll just get started. So page 1 and into 2 and then 3 and then 4 and 5, 6 and 7, 8 and 9, 10 and 11, 12 and 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and that's all. Again, in that process, I didn't hear any folks bringing forward any issues with the minutes. On that basis, can I have someone to propose and then another person to second the minutes from the 2024 annual general meeting, please? Feel free to come off mute. The silence is deafening and I can't go forward until we get them, or we're not approving them, but then no one's got any corrections. So help me out here, people. Anybody?
Happy to approve. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, Hannah Ladd Jones is going to approve. Can I have somebody to second them, please?
Happy to second, Brian.
Thanks, Ben. All right, okay. So through that, going to do matters arising next. So look through the minutes, and there was one matter arising, and we didn't close out, or I personally didn't close out. I wish I had gotten to this a little bit quicker. So apologies to it was Anne Shedden. I don't know if Anne's actually in the call this evening. I don't have a list, but Anne asked the question last year around about the new government at Westminster and specifically the impact for boaters in Scotland and how will the RYA be involved. And I talked last year with some of the other board members and chairs of the committees here about what that would mean for RYA Scotland. But I said to Anne I would get an answer from the RYA UK. So I've done that. I've had a response. I took back to the chair. My action is I went back to the chair, but he asked one of the staff team to do that. So Mel Hyde, who's the Director of External Affairs, has given me some notes. So I'm just going to read a response from Mel in this particular aspect. So with the new government in Westminster and shifts in policy and funding priorities, there may be changes that affect how and where we vote, especially around environmental regulation, infrastructure investment, and access to our waterways. The RYA is actively working to ensure that the voice of our members is heard. We engage directly with government departments and agencies. Examples are DCMS, DEFRA, DFT, and the Home Office to influence decisions that impact voting. Our focus is on protecting access, safety, and sustainability while promoting the wider benefits of voting, from health and well-being to skills development and economic value. Rather than direct campaigning, we build strong relationships within government to shape policy over long term. We also collaborate with other organisations to amplify the message. An example, this last year, Clean Water Sport Alliance, which has helped drive improvements in water quality monitoring. As members, you can be confident the RYA is monitoring the political landscape closely and acting strategically to safeguard the future of voting. Our goal is to ensure that your ability to enjoy the water is not compromised by short-term policy shifts or underinvestment, and that voting continues to thrive as part of UK life. So that's a statement from the RYA. One thing I would add to that in the conversations with Mel is that rather than sort of chase the party of the day, they actually try and go with more on the civil servants. So there's some level of consistency between governments changing. So at least they're fully briefed, but obviously they do engage with the political parties. Apologies, I don't know if Anne's on the call, but that's the response. And that was the only action that I could see from the minutes from last year. And I apologise to Anne personally, it should have been dealt with sooner. So I'll take that. That was an oversight on my part. If that is the only action or matters arising from the minutes that I could identify or we could identify. If everybody is happy with that, I'm going to move on. One initiative we've been working on for some time now has been youth representation in our governance model. And I'm delighted to say that we've taken significant steps forward in this regard this past year. So I'm going to hand over to Jill Reid, who's our new Under 25 Director, to brief us on this progress. Jill, over to you.
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, so a really exciting project of the Youth Voices Working Group that with Reese and Philippa we've launched this summer. And I think if we can go on to the next slide, that'd be great. But in terms of the purpose of the project, we're hoping to make sure that young people in sailing feel heard, valued, and that they feel that their opinions are influential in both like just sailing generally and also at a board and governance level. So we're hoping within Youth Voices that the young people that are involved, and also further afield, that it will provide young people with meaningful influence within RYA Scotland and encourage affiliates to better engage with young people. And we're just hoping that it will help them, get their opinions heard across sailing in Scotland. Next slide, please. We used a model called Hart's Ladder of Youth Participation as sort of a useful point of reference to measure ourselves against as RYA Scotland and like the working group. And this has been a really useful reference point internally when establishing our Youth Voices structure. I thought it'd just be useful to show it here as a measure of what we look to achieve with the group. The level that we're currently operating at is variable across like our areas of activity. So we're trying to use Youth Voices to look at how we can take steps up this ladder and in the right direction of having that improvement in how youth participate in our activity, obviously with the aim of reaching a higher rung with all of our activity. We're hoping that the structure that we've established will help us to embed young voices in the decision-making processes and embark on various youth-led areas of project work to help us achieve or work towards those top few rungs. So hopefully getting more youth-initiated and directed activities, or having shared decisions with the youths and young people involved in the group, and helping them feel more present in those decision-making moments. Next slide, please. In terms of what young people have told us so far, so through some really helpful research done by the team over the last year or two, such as a young sailors chat room at Connected Scotland in March 2024, a Youth Voices survey, and a Youth Voices activity at key events throughout the years, including Youth and Junior Championships and at the Clippers Stopover Day earlier in the year. The team managed to reach and get feedback from around 100 to 150 people, young people between the ages of 12 and 23, on things that they like around sailing, what they believe the barriers are, so such as fear, perceived cost and knowledge, and travel, location and access, and what is important from their perspective to sort of counter or like look for the group to look to achieve or like to work towards, so such as making sure that they feel heard or that their voice is being listened to and that they can actually make a difference even though they are younger. So we're hoping that this group will help to give the young people that are involved and others the confidence to be able to put their ideas forward, both at a club level or an activity level and at a board level. And in terms of what we've done, so just next slide, please. We've got 6 motivated and keen young people between 14 and 25 that are keen and motivated to get involved. The geographical spread has spread across all 3 regions, so east, west, and north, so including some representation from more rural communities, which is really nice to see. We've had our first meeting, which was really positive, and we've got our second coming up. And we're looking to work with the group to ensure that it offers young people an early opportunity to step into those governance structures in a way that works for them, which is a really key point that we're trying to get back to them, making sure that everything comes from that group, and they put the ideas forward. But we're hoping to give them opportunities to facilitate engagement at various events throughout the years. They'll be on the panel hopefully for like the next 2 years, as we're working on a 2-year cycle. But we're hoping within that to encourage that discussion, review and giving feedback to RYA Scotland decision makers, so the board, and focusing on team building, project management, life skills and personal development, as we think a really key point is giving them something back, and something tangible to take away from the group as well in terms of their own development. And we're hoping that they'll collaborate and influence subcommittees and the RYA Scotland board, and that they then through this feel empowered to contribute and make their perspectives heard as part of the group. We've got something exciting hopefully coming in the new year around Youth Voices, especially for them. So yeah, please keep an eye on the social media, and we'll hopefully be able to share that.
Okay, thanks, Joe. Appreciate that. We'll keep rolling along here, folks. So Chair's report. So as we reflect on the past year, I'm proud to share a summary of our progress, achievements, and the challenges that we've faced as a community. I'm going to break these down into some sub-areas. So let me start on leadership and governance. And we embedded some important changes in our leadership, and I'm delighted to formally welcome Judy Warburton as our incoming Honorary Treasurer, Chris Floyd as our new Coaching Director, and Jill Reid, who you just heard from, as our new Under-25 Director. These appointments mark a continued commitment to strengthen our governance and our expertise. I will also take this moment to thank the outgoing board members of Jasmine, Jack and Adam, who is here, and you will hear from later on. He's just going to put an end on his financial piece by actually reporting on the last financial year. All of their input has been highly valued, both by the organisation and I would say by me personally as well, in a number of different assets in my role as chair. So thank you very much for everything that you have done for this organisation. I would also say on this point that we do actually have 2 vacancies open. So if you like what you hear, or fans or don't like what you hear and you want to influence it, then there are 2 open positions right now. So please have a look on the website for those. This year we also approved a new risk management policy and refreshed our inclusive culture policy. These replaces our previous equality policies. These updates reflect our strategic foundations of equality, diversity, inclusion, and responsibility, ensuring we remain open, inclusive, and aligned with the Moving to Inclusion framework, which is a measurement from Sport Scotland. You will hear more from Ben on this shortly. Don't worry, Ben, I'm going to stop there and leave you some space. On the staffing and operations side, our staff team has remained focused, but we have seen a couple of recent changes. One of note I will call out is the resignation of our development manager, Lisa Linton, who was with us for nearly 12 years. As a result, we've taken the opportunity to review our staffing structure. We're now exploring a more integrated model with the formation of what we're calling the sailing development team within the staff group. And that's going to allow closer working between pathway, coach education, and club development, and that this reflects our strategic commitment to supporting people in their chosen paths, whether that's recreational, competitive, or professional. On the events and community engagement, we've had some fantastic events this year, starting off with our own youth and juniors events, kindly hosted by Loch Lomond Sailing Club. Thanks to them, was a great event, standout success. We've also been involved with the Island Games in Orkney, so helping with providing boats and other background work there. In fact, I don't think I know Chris from our board was actually volunteering at the sailing as well, so we were practically physically there as well. We've also had a number of classes having national championships, youth classes. So we've had the FIVA Nationals at Dalgety Bay, nearly 100 boats. I was pleased to go along to represent and visit that event from an RYA Scotland perspective, and I arrived on fancy dress day. But the sense of engagement and fun could not be missed. I also was at the Topper Nationals that were held at Largs Sailing Club. And again, despite me arriving on the day that there was no sailing due to very high winds, it was incredibly stormy. Again, the engagement and spirit of the sailors was clear to see. So can I thank the classes, both junior and adults, that have brought events here, the organising committees of these events, and the host clubs for running such wonderful events, really showcasing what we can do here in Scotland with events. I also got a couple of nice comments from clubs about our RYA Scotland support of these events, and so I thank them for that. It was our privilege to help out. I was also attended the Fin and Foil Festival in Stranraer. That event's just growing and growing. Third year, I think now. Comfortably over 100 participants down there. Again, just fantastic to see Scotland able to hold this class of events and do so brilliantly. Next year, obviously, we have the Clippers coming back to Oban, and the Oppie Nationals are in Largs, so it's still going to be a strong year for Scottish sailing. Moving on to club development and advocacy, our work with clubs continues to grow. We've enhanced engagement through personalised outreach. We've done some mailing campaigns and the development of our affiliation at a glance document, all helping clubs. We continue with the Connect calls. These remain a vital tool for supporting the clubs and sharing best practice. We obviously continued our influencing work, particularly around the proposed conservancy fee from Peel Ports. It's taken quite a bit of action this year. RYA Scotland has played a central role in the cross-party working group on recreational boating and marine tourism, We have done for a number of years, in fact, since that working group was established. And we're actively engaging with that group on Clyde Port, as well as other legal advisors, to protect the interests of our boating community. So I thank the team that's been working on that, quite a lot of work going there. I guess we should talk about some challenges, and maybe there are some opportunities in there. I guess my biggest challenge remains, and I think I've been clear the last few years, is funding. Flat funding from Sport Scotland and RYA UK means effectively a cut. And so we're needing to be increasingly more strategic and how we manage our resources. We've committed some of our own funding to bring in a new part-time member of staff to help with strategic partnerships and fundraising. And we've also joined with a number of other Scottish sport NGBs who are working on some political lobbying to get more attention from the current Scottish Government. To that end, with elections occurring next year, if you are in a position to talk to any candidates, I would implore you to ask a question about their commitment to sport, and that is all parties, not just picking on the current government. We need to be masters of our own destiny, so all these conversations will hopefully help, and the more people that have those conversations, I think that can make a difference. The board, we had our connected conference in 2024. That was after our last AGM. I think the board overall felt it was a disappointing attendance, and we've made the decision to pause the 2025 event, and we're effectively evaluating internally about how we're going to deal with conferences going forward. I think Finlow we may get to touch on that a little bit more, but as always, we are open to ideas. So if you have thoughts on these matters, or any matter, frankly, you can just get in touch, admin@ryscotland.org.uk. We're always keen to hear from members. Safeguarding remains a priority. We've made a couple of changes in how this is managed, particularly with Lisa's departure. I'm actually delighted to say that Pauline McGraw, who's the senior administrator, has been for a long time. I think most people in Scottish Sailing know Pauline has actually stepped up to take the lead in this matter. She's working really closely with colleagues in Hamble. In fact, she was just telling me the other day that she was down in Hamble to have some meetings with them. It's an absolutely critical area, and so I'm delighted that Pauline's taking the lead on this key piece. Some look ahead. I mean, our vision is clear. It's a welcoming and vibrant boating community where everyone feels safe and inspired. Our strategic priorities remain people, supporting individuals to succeed, feel included and be valued, whether they are participants, volunteers, coaches, staff. Places, ensuring our waters and facilities are clean, accessible, sustainable, and support is tailored to our geographic diversity. The communities of strengthening connections, fostering collaborations, and celebrating the impact of boating on health, well-being, and local identity. We'll continue to build on our 4 strategic foundations, which I mentioned already: equality, diversity, inclusion. We also have a base in sustainability, partnerships, reflected by our additional headcount in that space, and communications. And together, these guide our behaviours, decisions, and the way we measure impact, just not in numbers. Because numbers, I think, really doesn't do a good job of telling the impact we as a sport make, and lives that we've improved. So that's my chair's report. And again, I have thanks at the end, but I will just quickly say thanks to everyone that's made a difference in our sport. I'm always eternally grateful. I'm going to hand off. I said Adam's doing is no longer the treasurer, but Adam is going to close out the accounts at 24-25, and then Judy will have a clean run at 25-26. So I'm going to hand over to Adam. And Adam, thank you very much for doing this. Appreciate it.
No worries. Good evening, everyone. Thanks, Brian. I'm just going to give a short update on the finances to the end of the year that ended 31st of March 2025. You can probably see from the bullets in the slide that this year's results have been a little different from usual. We budget and normally aim for a sort of balanced outcome, and that is where the costs broadly match the income. And most years we've achieved that result, usually with a small kind of surplus. I mean, as you know, the goal of the organisation isn't to make profits, make surpluses. It's to use the funds that it gathers for the benefit of the sport. In the year just gone, the surplus at the end of the year was 52k, so that's a little higher than we'd normally expect. We identified kind of towards the middle of the year that we were likely to see a surplus, and kind of considering what to do around that, we agreed to let it flow to the reserves. So when it's in the reserves, it can be used for future years. And we were mindful very much of the factors that Brian alluded to at the start there in his introduction. We're seeing a period of sort of political instability, quite a lot of pressure on the public purse. Obviously, sort of new government down south and elections in Scotland in the new year, and then also particularly importantly, the message we're getting is flat funding. The funding cycle generally is a 4-year cycle. We're into years 3 and 4 of that, and expecting flat funding, but obviously having to manage inflationary pressures. So we felt it was best to be a little bit cautious, to take the opportunity just to top up the reserves a little bit, and hopefully people agree that makes sense in the context. There were 3 main reasons why we had a little bit more surplus this year. There was a gap in the comms team, which is primarily funded by Hamble, and where we see gaps in the team there, we have the options to redeploy the savings as we see fit. There was a sale of a rib, and also we saw a little bit more income around the fees we charge in the performance area. And we took a sort of cautious position budgeting there, and we saw the levels sort of returning closer to what we saw kind of before COVID, as participation has come up a little bit. And you can broadly see these movements in the income and the cost line in the accounts. So yeah, to summarise, we closed the year with reserves of £278,000, so an increase of 52k. We expect to draw, or we may draw on an element of that in the years ahead, but we're confident that the position of the reserves is well above the policy that we have. Do you want to move to the next slide? And then this slide here, just as a regular slide we have for this meeting, it just kind of, I guess, reminds people what the sources of funds are, and the areas that we spend those funds in, and just gives us that breakdown. As you can see, 74% of our income comes from Sports Scotland, and obviously that's from Scottish Government. Then the next large chunk is from the RYA, and then we generate a modest amount of income ourselves. So we are, looking at maybe opportunities to try and expand that, as Brian, alluded to, within the, looking at kind of partnerships and opportunities there. I mean, broadly, the splits in these areas are fairly stable year on year, and 2/3 of our cost is staffing or external resources such as coaches. So that was my kind of short update on the finances. So I'll close there. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Adam. Katie, can I just jump in on maybe two things? Well, I should have said earlier, if you've got any questions, probably best to just pop them in the chat at the side and we will get to them. And to that point, there is a question already in, which I think I'll just take now, if that's okay, which is from Tim Pickering. Appreciate the positive comment, Tim. RYA Scotland policy aligns with the RYA. I jokingly say that RYA released their new strategy document. What they did is they took the Scotland one, took off Scotland and printed it. It's very highly aligned at a strategic level, and so there's lots of crossover points. I think your question specifically about one of the reasons RYA Scotland exists is we're always here to deal with the differences in law and other operating elements between England and Scotland, and so we're very much aware of the different legal requirements, the different reporting bodies that we also have to work from particularly on a child protection or vulnerable persons protection. So totally understand your question, and I hope you're reassured that we definitely are all over that. But I appreciate the comment and the question. Okay, we'll go to Katie now. Thanks, Katie.
Thanks, Brian. Hello, everybody. Good evening. Good to see everyone online tonight. I'm just going to update a bit on some of our governance things. There's not a huge amount to say because, in fact, we're quite settled governance-wise, apart from our normal sort of board refresh that happens every few years when people's terms as directors come to an end. And it's been great to see just in the last year RYA Scotland benefiting really from a full complement of directors. We've really had the breadth and the strength of having all these roles filled with dedicated and engaged volunteers, which is just it's great. I can't recognise that highly enough. Obviously, working with Finlo and all of our staff team, and I think what's really struck home in the last year or so is the very, very broad range of collective skill and experience within the board membership, and I think that's a huge benefit to the organisation. We do always have a sort of periodic refresh of director roles, and Brian's already talked about our new, not so new anymore, directors this evening. We do have a sort of successful staggering of changes of board members in line with what our articles of association say, and we're in I suppose a rhythm of that we avoid any significant numbers of refresh of board members at one time. So we continually retain the knowledge and the experience of the whole of the cohort of the whole board as that process goes through. So it's great to be able to welcome new appointees. It's sad to say goodbye to colleagues with whom we've worked over long periods of time and really built genuinely fruitful working relationships with, and just still be able to bring that constant refresh. When I say constant, I just mean year by year to the breadth of the skills and experience of the board members. So in terms then of what we do and how we do it, we've had great opportunities this year as a board to meet together. We've had in-person meetings, feeling much more like COVID is definitely genuinely behind us. We've had get-togethers at Edgar in January with Sarah Sutcliffe, who is the Chief Executive of RYA Hamble. We had another board get-together again at Port Edgar in March for discussions about our continuing strategy and about our impact discussions, as well as all the less formal, although still very well planned work that goes on through our committees for cruising and general purposes, for participation, performance, and a lot of the initiatives that you've heard about and will hear more about just as we go on this evening. Also, I just echo Brian's comments about the pillars that we see of working to try and foster an inclusive and diverse approach to membership and to participation, about policy and representation. It's great to have the benefit of working with people who are genuinely connected into Scotland and how things work. Particularly, we've seen that with the Peel Ports conservation fee conversations, with a number of people really getting right into the heart of, I suppose, government and some of the people who are making decisions or who are important to hear our voice. And that's been really, really encouraging to see that. I think more on a lighter aspect, we've had, as Brian's already said, Orkney Games, we had Clipper and Oban, we've had all the racing and youth participation, and more widely just being able to take the opportunity to go sailing. And that's a great, for me this year, that's been a great way through connections in RYA that are in sailing terms for me newer than some of my much older connections, but to build those connections and friendships through the board, testing those, and in one case actually testing the metal of Neil's boat, which we managed to break. Anyway, that was a very windy day. All the directors have been involved in the board recruitment, and I think that's been a very important aspect of bringing together and refreshing that board. And I think we're always pleased to see the breadth and the quality of the skills and experience of people who apply to join the board, because there is an application process, as Brian's already alluded to. And I would just finish by echoing and saying it would be, if anyone is interested, there are vacancies there. It's a really rewarding opportunity to join a great group of people and a great staff, or in an organisation that really can make a difference to our sport. So I will echo what Brian has said. And so, if you could just move to the next slide, we thought it would be helpful to have the slide. Oh, I think we've maybe missed it. That had our new joiners this year, who Brian's already introduced, with Judy Warburton, Chris Floyd, and with Jill Reid appointed, and then the existing directors there on the right-hand side. So that just gives you a summary of where the board position is sitting at the moment. And again, please do mention to people that there are opportunities to apply if they would like. And I think that concludes from me, Brian. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Katie. Before we go on, I just want to cover off a point that's been brought to my attention. So Boyd, thanks for raising it. He's questioning the tabling of accounts is in the agenda, and we haven't tabled the accounts. And in case I get this wrong, Adam can back me up, but effectively the actual approval of accounts is a board responsibility. And so with the greatest respect, and you're quite right, Boyd, I don't think tabling of accounts should have been on the agenda, because we're not required to actually have formal approval of the accounts here at our annual general meeting. Is that right, Adam? Yeah,
that's correct, Brian.
Yeah.
And they have the accounts have been approved by the board, pre to them being filing on Companies House.
So apologies, Boyd, you're right, and I'll make a note that future AGMs we clear that off, and we should always actually remember to talk about that each time as well, just because it is it's worthy of repetition. But thanks for keeping me honest, Boyd. Appreciate it. Okay, I'm going to move on if that's all right, and we're on to board and staff update. So you're going to hear from a good chunk of the board. The running order's on screen right now, and I'll just hand over to our first Hannah Earl Payne, and Vice Chair. So Hannah, over to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Evening, everybody. It's been quite an interesting year up here. I've been involved in quite a lot of the activity, kind of particularly focused around clubs, and have directly benefited from a lot of the support from the staff team, and it really highlighted the dedication of both the staff and our volunteers continue to drive meaningful progress here in Scotland, often sort of quietly, and sometimes in the face of challenge. As you're probably all fully aware, Scotland operates in a very distinct environment shaped by its geography, scale, and community. And the people, places, and community strategy has delivered real benefits, strengthening a lot of our local connections and helping to grow participation in ways that make sense for Scotland. At the same time, though, our clubs and training centres are facing increasing pressures, new coding requirements, evolving standards, and ongoing questions around the relevance and recognition of RYA qualifications. These are not isolated incidences. They highlight that there needs to be a real need for flexibility, understanding, and genuine support that reflects the Scottish context. That includes economically viable training offerings, supported by adequately resourced and professionally developed instructors, trainers, and examiners. The reality is that without this, we're already seeing a reduction in the number of providers offering RYA qualifications across Scotland, with some moving towards alternative certification routes. Now, we absolutely see ourselves as a forward-thinking organisation and as wider RYA as well. But being forward-thinking does mean that we need to listen to those working at the sharp end, recognising those regional realities and acting on what we can learn. So I've really valued my time on the board, but I have decided that now is the time to step down. I'm really proud of what's being achieved here in Scotland. There's some really, really good drive forward and developing into the organisation that it should be. And I'm really hopeful that RYA Scotland will continue to lead by example, showing what progress looks like when it is grounded in understanding, collaboration, and integrity. I just want to put my thanks out to the rest of my fellow board members and the staff team and other volunteers, and just say thank you. It has been a pleasure being part of the developments, which are a really good thing to see.
Great. Thanks, Hannah. Appreciate it. And you definitely will be missed. It's the loss of that. Well, we've got two boards. There will be another board point, potentially another board opportunity there as well coming up shortly. But thanks, Hannah. We will go on to Ben.
Thank you, Brian. Good evening, everybody. So Ben Kemp, and I have a particular responsibility on the board for all things governance and EDI, equality, diversity, and inclusion. And both of these things, some of the progress I'm just going to talk about very briefly can feel quite dry in some ways, as compared to the excitement of actually getting out on the water at events. But these are topics that I am passionate about, and they are importantly topics that we've considered and focused on as a board this year, and critically they really provide the underpin and the foundations for much of the great work and the progress that we've talked about, and you'll hear more about from other board members. Quick word about governance. Katie has touched on this to some extent, but I just want to say a word about risk. Actually, we've reframed our risk management approach and policy this year. We had a great session, a number of discussions, actually, a great session at a strategy away day on this, thinking really about what risk means, our understanding of risk and how we manage it really means for the organization. And risk, of course, can be seen as something that is something to be managed and potentially a blocker to things that we can do. And we wanted to look at it more creatively in a more strategic way. We've looked at our risk approach in line with the RYA at Hamble and other sort of examples of best practice under particular headings that you see there. relevance, reputation, legal governance and compliance, financial and people, and we subdivided those to some extent as well. We thought about our risk appetite in respect of each of these areas, and we have been working on a clearer and more relevant risk register. And I guess the highlight here is to say that whilst we remain acutely conscious of the importance of managing our risk in some of these areas, in particular, thinking around areas such as financial and people and legal governance and compliance. There are other areas where we can afford and indeed need to be perhaps a little bit bolder. And that's something that we want to, as an organisation, to lean into in order to achieve our ambitions, perhaps to enable us to be a bit more creative, and particularly looking at that first heading, how it is that we remain relevant to our membership. And this goes to our risk culture, how risk averse we are, and how willing we are to try things as an organisation to support our members and tackle some of the challenges to enable us to fulfil our vision and purpose. So that's actually been a really, really important conversation, and I hope you'll see some more of that coming through in our approach in practical terms going forward. If you go to the next slide, please. Quality, diversity and inclusion. So if governance is about the sort of internally how we manage our affairs and how we ensure we're well set up to deliver for our members, equality, diversity, inclusion is partly internally looking. It's partly about how we ensure that as an organisation we are open to all on our boards and committees and on our staff team, and that's perhaps an area where we've been making some really good progress, I think. But it's also about supporting the sport, our sector, our members, in ensuring that our sport, the sport of boating, is open to all, and it's we are, as a community, one which is inclusive and where everybody can feel a sense of belonging. I think we've made some great progress in recent years, particularly actually in the area of gender. Particularly in terms of the organisation, although we've got more work to do in terms of the wider boating community. There are some areas where we think that we really need to focus and perhaps focus a bit more strategically, thinking about how our sport can be more open to people from different socio-economic backgrounds, more open to those with different forms of disability. And people from different ethnic backgrounds as well. We have made some great progress, as you've already heard from Jill, in relation to our younger community with the fantastic youth voices work. We've put in place some really strong building blocks to enable us to be more strategic and impactful in this area. We have really worked hard on what we've called an inclusive culture policy, where we set out aims of creating a culture of belonging, promoting inclusion, dismantling barriers, amplifying our unrepresented voices, and challenging ourselves. And that's so critical. We recognizing that we don't have a monopoly of right in terms of what works and what doesn't for our community here. And we need to be ourselves open to different perspectives and challenge. And part of the way we've done that is to set up an external advisory group that is just coming to fruition. We've just made a number of really important appointments to that group. This will be a group that will support the board, support the staff team, and offer challenge and new perspectives to our work in the area of EDI. And I hope that you'll hear more on that and the progress we're making this time next year, and in the meantime in our communications. And Brian, I'll leave it at that. I could talk for a long time about this because it's something we feel passionate about, but this goes to really supporting the actual work of that we do to deliver fantastic boating. And with that, pass to Peter, I think, who's going to speak to cruising and general purposes.
Thank you, Ben. So good evening, everybody. I'm Peter Robinson, and I've got a board position with an oversight of our Cruising and General Purposes Committee. If you go to the next slide, please. I think fundamentally this has been my second year in post, and reflecting upon it, it's certainly not getting any quieter. So For those of you who possibly don't appreciate everything that's going on, and there are a number of the members of the Cruising General Purposes Committee here and joined us this evening. It's a very busy area. The committee's formed of volunteers covering an incredibly broad range of activity. I do have to say thank you to Charlie Bird for his chairing of that committee and bringing everybody together and organising it, and also to Graham Russell. But we've gone through a process over the last 12 months of putting a bit more structure in place. There's clearly areas where there's an awful lot of activity. Inland waterways takes up time, and members' access to the inland waterways is quite unique. Graham's involvement is to deal with a lot of representation, and the pressures that are being placed upon our playground, as we call it, are only growing. So the amount of activity that is taking place from the energy sector, fish farming communities, that all of this aspects are coming in, and the amount of responses that are being made in terms of responding to consultations is really significant. To ensure that we get a fair position in opening up and using that space and having access to the water and maintaining that. The committee's generally got 8 other general members in it, and again we've got connections into the Coast Watchers connection. So we have our group of Coast Watchers out who are feeding in other information coming into the committee, which we get a general picture of what is going on, and we can test, and find out the pressures that are facing around that. We discuss all sorts of bits and pieces, sailing, cruising, people's experience, access to the water, pressures around marinas, or where the services and facilities are maybe not as good as we would want for our members, and maybe drive what we can do for that. I'm not going to touch on Peel Ports. It's been mentioned once or twice so far, but it has been a really significant amount of effort for the community and the committee over the last 12 months. And from my perspective, I'm always amazed at how much effort is being put in by a group of volunteers with incredibly technical insights into what can and what couldn't be done, and what should or shouldn't be done. But we do need, again, more support, and we are going to be meeting and looking at how we ensure that we can continue to provide this level of involvement on behalf of our membership. Next slide, please. I've touched upon the number of consultations. These are both local, national, regional. We're responding into government consultations and providing a voice on behalf of members that is being put into government policy, both local and national. A lot of work spent collaborating with RYA, both regional. So it's not a disconnect. As Brian was alluding, our strategies are aligned, and therefore the outlook. After all, we're all trying to achieve the same thing: spending time on the water. A lot of the time spent engaging with third parties, and then also another theme coming through is looking at sustainability. Lots of work and ideas and thoughts being put through by the committee around decarbonisation. The potential for boats to move towards electric. I was about to say turn them into electric boats. And again, obviously, we have our green blue initiatives, and a lot of time thinking about the future. So, what is the future chartering demands? We get into discussing the weather, climate change. Some of it feels immediate, and it depends. We're going through a kind of cyclical time with everything of this. So it's been a very busy year. I thank you to the committee, those of you who are here, and ask for anybody who may want to consider being and becoming involved and thinking about how you could contribute to this. And we will carry on and have another busy year again next year. Thank you. I'm going to pass on to Neil.
Thank you very much, Peter. So having the team making sure we've got good access to the waters around us, we have to make sure also that we have healthy, vibrant clubs and that we can make the most of that. So Finlo, if you could go to the next slide, please. And first, thanks everybody for taking the time this evening to attend the AGM, show the interest and the passion for the sport, which we as a board need to reflect on your behalf in what we do. And participation and development is absolutely key to that. And as Brian mentioned earlier, there's been some changes to the team, but as most of those came, with the exception of Nassif, which was last December, most of those came at the end of the summer. So there was a lot of delivery of good support around the coast and inland all year. Brian spent a lot of time with the Orkney Games, and the real message from the Orkney Games was the collaboration between the teams, between the clubs up there, and reigniting that has reignited a passion for sailing within the islands. And we're seeing that obviously it's supported because we were able to get funding for some boats, which have been put in with the clubs up there. And that is also re-energising sailing within the islands, and we hope that will give an enduring legacy up in the north. The usual run-of-the-mill, and it's not run-of-the-mill, it's very hard to do, but it's absolutely the core of what we do is to deliver on board, discover sailing and sailability, and trying to get all of that first-time opportunity support. And one of the ways that we've been encouraging all of the team to do is through getting out and about to meet you, the members, you, the volunteers who are helping run the clubs, and get face-to-face with you, listen to you, understand what's happening at the events, to better understand what we can do to support yourselves. So Finlay, if you could go to the next slide, please. I mean, the reality is that there is a challenge out there, but there's been some really good work. Some of the kind of more background stuff is helping clubs with their legal and financial structures. We're not mandating that you move one way or the other, but through best practice sharing, through learning from others, we're able to explain the pros and cons of different financial structures, different legal structures, and we're seeing that the SKIO structure is becoming very much a great way of protecting volunteers of clubs from personal liabilities, whilst enabling the clubs to operate in a very positive way. And another element where the team have been supporting clubs directly is through funding applications. And we've seen that north, south, east and west, inland and on the coasts, with helping to get funding for improving facilities, improving clubhouse and making sure we have facilities and clubhouses which reflect today's reality and not just a legacy of the past with fading paintwork and cold showers, etc. And really doing that, whilst doing that, we've been encouraging the team to create best practices which are available to all of our clubs and to all volunteer officials of clubs, so that when you approach a funding opportunity, you're not going into that necessarily with, as a first time, how do I do it? There are people out there, the RDOs are very much there to support you and to help you with that, because we do have a track record of connecting people and helping with that. The Participation and Development Committee is key to that. Ian Duncan chairs it with support from Neil Beveridge as Deputy Chair, and we've got some long-term members in the committee. We're always looking for more, and two of the longest-term members, Neil Baird and Ian Nichols, have departed this year, but we still are very focused on making sure that we are giving guidance to the RYA team, the permanent associates of RYA, to make sure they're doing what is right on behalf of clubs and organisations around Scotland. But there are big challenges out there. The data is showing that the sport is not growing. We're seeing club membership flat and on the slide. And when we look at active participation in club events, it's not really growing. And we also need critical skills to help facilitate those events. So these are all challenges which we recognise and are built into the 4-year operational plan which the team has put together. And I think all of this goes to a question which we received before the AGM is, why would you affiliate? So the first point I would say is to take a look at the promises made on the RYA website around affiliation, and please hold us to account against those. And the main things there is that we're here to provide information and advice, not to tell you how to do things, but to be there as a source of good information and best practices relevant to Scotland, relevant to Scottish law, but also from elsewhere to help you when you're running clubs. Yes, we need to do more on promoting clubs, promoting sailing and promoting your events, recognised, and we anticipate seeing changes in that next year. And that really, when clubs pay their money, you do need to see support from the RYA to make sure you're getting good value. And those discussions took place very early on in the year, and that was one of the reasons why the At a Glance affiliation brochure was created and has been put out to the clubs to show that we are genuinely trying to make sure we give value to money to affiliated clubs. but we're always keen to learn and hear what you want us to do on your behalf. So please don't be shy about emailing into the team, speaking to your RDOs, giving us the challenge to say, here is what we believe we would prefer you to be focusing your resources on to help improve the sport of sailing in Scotland that we're also passionate about. So as I said, having the cruising and general purpose team, making sure we have availability of the waters all over Scotland. We need a healthy club scene with good membership of all ages and all capabilities, enjoying their time in the water, because that will lead on to us also then having the icing on the cake, which is great performance. So I think at this point I will hand over to Hamish, who can tell us how from that club scheme we then have good performance. So Hamish.
Thank you, Neil. Very nice segue there, actually. So good evening, everybody. Hamish Mackay, Performance Director. Really nice to see some familiar faces on the call. It struck me when I was looking through who was on tonight. The level of experience and knowledge that exists within our community is really quite exceptional. If we go next slide, please. So for those of you that are familiar with our performance program, we've done a little bit of tinkering with it, and what I mean by that is the symbols at the bottom of this particular slide. You'll notice there's consistency across the full pathway about the branding in particular, and we hope that the consistency in branding will allow the sailors and the parents to understand where where they fit into the program. So it's really, really important to build on the club work that Neil was just talking about. We'll talk more about pathway clubs over the coming years as they build. Those of you that know that's an RYA Hamble initiative. We've built to create the club racing academies. That moves into open training, into our junior squads. We'll talk about the participants of them in a second. The development squad, and then ultimately at the top rung of our ladder is the Scottish sailing team. And we can't forget what our purpose is. Our purpose is to take our grassroots sailor, give them a strong grounding in performance, move them through to the top tier in Scottish sailing team, and then pass them on to the British sailing team. That is our purpose. Now, people at different ages, stages, and sizes and experience fit into our program at different places, and equally where they fit into the British sailing team. We've done so in terms of the structure. The structure's there. It's familiar. We've tinkered with it. The team's done, I think, a strong job, and we're getting that communication out so that the sailors and the parents understand it. At a practical level, we've taken on Spond. For those of you that haven't seen that, and I've only seen it very, very recently myself, but an app-based booking tool hopefully will make that process a lot simpler for our parents in particular when they're dealing with the younger sailors, and allows us to have an information exchange. We're already seeing some immediate benefit for that as we roll into the winter program. So if we go next slide, please. I'll come to the results in a second. But in terms of the selection, so in terms of the junior squad, I think for those of you who were with us last year said we were in a rebuild. We still are in a rebuild. We're trying to still attract more and more people into the lower rungs of the pyramid, if we can call it that. But for this year in particular, our junior squad is looking really strong. We've got 14 sailors in the Thiva. We've got 7 in the Optimist. We've got 4 in the Techno, and we've got 5 in the Topper. So we've got really strong grounding there that these are going to be our future athletes that are going to deliver success for us over the coming years. And when we move into the development squad, which sits at the level just above junior, 29er class, we've got 8, we've got 11 in the ILCA 4 and 6, we've got 3 in the IQ foil. And then the Scottish sailing team, which is our top rung, we have 6 sailors in there in the ILCA 6 and 5 in the IQ foil. And these sailors are already starting to deliver from the sort of late summer and autumn results, not least the ILCA's inlands at the weekend. And then we're really delighted to say that we've got 3 sailors that have come through our Scottish programme and we're still associated with. Their pictures are here in Anna Burnett and Andy Brown and Isla Watson. Now, In terms of results, the results from these sailors at that level, which is as high as you can get, is phenomenal. You know, Andy is world champion. He'd be silver at the Europeans last year. You'll see the results here. Anna, again, you know, she's had 2 Olympics. They're looking to go for their 3rd Olympics, and they won most recently the NACRA World Championships and the Europeans. And Isla has got some really, really strong results as well, as you can see. At a more domestic level, if you like, we had some great results at the youths. Cameron McDade 2nd. That's the best result we've had for a very long time at these championships. And Andrew Perrott and Rue Purvis were 9th in the 29er, amongst the other ones that we mentioned there. I should also call out that we haven't got it on the slide that our own Rory McKenna, who I think might even be on the call, Rory, so forgive me if I'm embarrassing you now, but most recently got gold at the World Ability Sports Beach Games just in October there, got gold at the Hansa World Championships, and there might be more to come in December when I understand you're attending the World Sailing Inclusion Championship. So across the spectrum, we are what we believe is hopefully delivering some really, really strong athletes to deliver some fantastic results. That leads me to thank a few people, if I may. Clearly the staff, in terms of Jamie, Ben and Dot, really the glue that's keeping our programme together. The Performance Committee, which has been chaired by Duncan Hepplewhite, supporting that, the staff and the decisions and the strategy that go forward. A really strong group of people there. As always, and you'll have heard earlier from others, we are always looking for more people to join that particular group. And of course, we need to thank the coaches for their continued support to all of these sailors at all of the levels. And the majority of our coaches are homegrown, which is really pleasing to see. Many of them are previous sailors themselves within our system. We should also thank the parents, the commitment that the parents put in to move their children around, their sailors around, their athletes around, and support them is really quite exceptional. So there are some long cold days standing in the beach or in the sailing clubs watching what's going on, but not least the miles they do to get them there. So we do recognise the sacrifice that takes place there. And of course the sailors themselves, the commitment that sailors put in is exceptional. Not least the activity on the water, but the preparation before and after. But as I've said last year, and I think the year before, we need more. We need more talented young sailors who are, I've scribbled a couple of things down here. Young, enthusiastic, engaged, and wide-eyed. The talented bit, hopefully, we can work on and help them with. But if they bring all the other attributes into the system, however they arrive, we'll hopefully do our very best for them. So thank you. And I'm going to hand to Chris.
Thank you. Yep, first off is the exceptional thanks to the team who we've just disappeared. So Robin and Gail, who head up the bits and pieces. So utmost thanks. Yep, we'll progress now, thanks. A couple of points. Realistically, it's looking at the fact that we are supporting the wider team, as mentioned by different folks here already. Last year, there was the sort of gathering and starting of the coaching collective. That's gone on and has been a key focus of actually being able to share subsidies to a variety of people to help enable their coaching careers, hopefully, which is listed on the slide there. And also progressing as folks move through that into participants taking part in SI courses. What I would highlight is the next one, thanks, is the Aspire. And the Aspire is, we've put the QR code in there so you can have a look if you don't know what Aspire is or you're not sure where it is, and just see it's moving forwards. Its statement is clearly listed on that slide. What you'll find if you go in there is it's putting everything together. It's been a huge amount of work by the folks involved, and it will continue to be a a key area of growth. Things will be added to it all the time. If you look at it today or tomorrow, it will be different in a couple of months' time. There will be additions added, and hopefully it's putting together everything that we want to help encourage and enable people to move along in that community partnership, as it says there, whilst moving in through this digital method of being able to pull the bits and pieces out. And that's it in a nutshell. And it really is. Go and look at the Aspire. Go and look at see what the work is being done, and go and look to see how it could help you or your colleagues or your club, etc., etc. Thanks.
Hi everyone, my name's Hannah Jones. I'm the Independent Director. Sorry for putting up a blurry photo of myself. I'm very quickly going to touch on a couple of things that link in more with comms and events, so engagement with yourselves and non-members too. As many of you have seen, the newly designed website was launched on the 10th of September. The website has a whole new different layout, and it took a long process to get to this point. It involved a lot of work from a lot of team members from all variety of home countries at various stages of the build. And the new setup is much more robust, hopefully a lot more user-friendly compared to the old site. And we're really hoping that it's a much better layout for Scottish related content and kind of keeps everything together rather than making you jump around to different parts of the website. I just also want to mention quickly social media. That is where a lot of members get information, and non-members as well, about activities that RYAS are taking. So we've seen a positive increase in reach and growth on different platforms, and our comms lead highlighted to me that the Where Could Sailing Take You series really stood out with engagement with audiences from a variety of platforms, with a viewership of over 25,000 across Facebook and Instagram. And the series shared snapshots of advice and wisdom from those who've carved a career in the sailing industry, with an aim of inspiring and highlighting opportunity too. So, you know, if you're not already following parts of our social media, please do. It's where a lot of information goes as well, and links into the website too. Me personally, I've been beginning to liaise with team members who are involved in organising the Connect conference on a variety of elements about organising an event. We really want to make the next conference an event that attracts more members to attend and offers a programme that ensures that when people finish the conference and leave, they feel satisfied that it was worth attending. And so we're going to be working on ensuring that the content is what members want and need, as well as exploring some new ideas that make the event worthwhile and unique to Scotland's sailing's community. As Brian's already mentioned, please let us know what you would like to have featured. We need feedback from yourselves. It's what guides us in knowing what you want. And I'd like to mention as well that even though we haven't done any posts about the conference itself, in the future, if you see a save the date or opportunity to provide feedback, please do tell others about it. Word of mouth is invaluable for letting others know about the conference. And yeah, just helping spread the word when we start to publish information about it is really, really appreciated. And I now hand over to Finlo.
Yeah, thanks, Hannah. As I always say at the AGM, I've got the pleasure of going last and reflecting on the brilliant work that's done throughout Scotland. There were times, I'd say this genuinely, there were tingles down my spine, actually, about some of the things that were being talked about. Really, really impressive stuff. So the areas that Hannah's just covered is all about engagement. So this is my opportunity to thank you for your engagement with RYA Scotland through the year, what we're trying to deliver to the community, but also thanks for being part of the sport, contributing to your clubs and to the events that those clubs are putting on. As you'll know, we've been guided over the years by our strategic approach, focused on people, places and communities, and we do report on that, the impact of that work with our annual impact report. We're in sort of year 3 of that cycle of people, places and communities now, and the impact report covers many of the key areas of our activity. The support we provide to the clubs, as highlighted by Neil, the development of instructors and coaches, harnessed by Chris, the achievements of our performance sailors, harnessed by Hamish, our EDI activity, representation work we undertake on behalf of the community that Peter spoke about. But actually, quite a lot of the report contains stories and recognition of individuals and clubs in the community who are doing some really quite extraordinary things and showing some outstanding dedication to our sport. And many of these have been recognised. We've been able to recognise them through a series of impact awards. And the nominations for the impact awards come from the community. So these individuals and these clubs really are community leaders in our sport, and they're the ones that we're able to recognise. But there's many others alongside them who are delivering some really tremendous work. The other area we've included in our impacts reports is what we might call, what are we hearing and what are we doing? So one of the things that we're hearing, and Hamish sort of alluded to this, is that many young sailors find they have to travel away from their local sailing club to pursue race training opportunities. And one of the changes that Jamie and the team have put forward in the Evolving Pathway program is to bring bespoke race training into the clubs, and so providing a much wider geographic spread of those opportunities. So we heard there was a problem, and we've evolved to try and fix some of that as well. And that's just one of a number of innovations we're putting in place. And as Ben mentioned, the board have expressed a higher tolerance for risk. And so that gives the staff team the freedom just to try new things and to sort of flex the delivery in response to the community need. So that's quite an exciting opportunity for the staff team. So regarding the staff, this is again a regular theme for me to report on. It's an absolute pleasure. It is really a genuine pleasure to lead this talented and dedicated staff team. And on the theme of impact, I'd like to ensure there's actually a formal record of the impact that Pauline has made. She's completed 20 years with RYA Scotland this year, leading our business support team. So Pauline, thank you for your support to me. Congratulations, and thank you from us all. So have that sort of formally recorded in the AGM. I think it's important. Interestingly, I heard recently that there's a perception that RYA Scotland is a staff of nearly 30 people. And why can't we do more with our nearly 30 people? The truth is we've actually got a staff team of 14, of which 5 have a role that's directly linked to delivering to the community on the water. So it's not 30 people, it's 5 plus others who are directly delivering. Of course, we're supported by the talented performance coaches and by a community of experienced trainers who are all contributing to that delivery. But we're fundamentally a relatively small organisation. We're looking after a wide-ranging sport with many participants, and they're all seeking different things. And we're trying to support and do what we can to provide for everybody. And in the figure on the right-hand side there, you can see where we had direct delivery or engagement with the community during 2024. It was nearly 100 locations where we are actually there, boots on the ground, working and talking to people. The picture for 2025 will be similar. So a relatively small team is putting in a lot of miles to have a lot of interactions, and I believe we are making a very positive contribution. We have had some staff changes. Recently, Brian mentioned that we've moving from sort of discrete departments, creating more of a sailing development team. Hopefully, this will be a more effective way of engaging with the community. And interestingly, RYA and Hamble have taken the same approach. They've combined their regional development department and their racing department, which I think recognises the considerable spectrum across which participation and enjoyment of the sport is taking place. So we're taking a similar approach here. We've got some new faces. One of those, again, Brian alluded to, we're taking a bit of a change here in response to the forecast financial challenges. We're going to be doing a lot more around sponsorship and partnerships. So we welcome Stephanie Proud. She's got 15 years or more of working in brand development and sponsorship sectors. She's also formerly a world-class swimmer as well. So welcome to Steph. And also, in the last year, Naomi Eagles joined us as well in the business support team, and I'd like to thank her for her work preparing for the AGM. Turnover is okay. It's healthy for an organisation, but we've got a nice balance now between turnover and stability. When I first arrived, 75% of the posts, of the staff posts, were in some kind of flux in that first year. In the second year, it's 25% of the staff posts were in some level of change, and this year it's 15%. So we've reached a good level of stability, but there's some turnover, and that's okay. It's always exciting to bring in new people with new skills and experiences into both the staff team and the volunteer team as well. So just to finish off, I recently heard one of the staff say that as a relatively small team, we had the advantage of being agile. And with that backing of the board to take some more risk, we're in a really good position to deploy our resources to best effect for the community. But we do need to hear from you. We do need to hear what it is you want us to do. So just to close off, so on behalf of the RYA staff, I'd like to thank you for your time tonight. I look forward to working with you in the community, and the staff team are there to help. Stay in touch, talk to us, come and join us. Plenty of volunteer opportunities. So, Brian, I'll leave it there. I think we're on to the next part of the agenda.
Yep. Thank you, Dunlo, and thanks to all my fellow board members for their presentations. I hope you enjoyed that. It is sometimes quite amazing, even to me, just how much we are prosecuting on an annual basis. I'm going to move on. We have members' questions. We asked for questions to be submitted in advance. We have 4 questions. I'm going to jumble the order slightly because Neil answered the second question about the benefits to a club of being RYA affiliated, I should say, sorry. So I hope so I don't have a full list of who's here, but Sally, if you're here, I hope that was a useful answer for you, and if not, pop something in the chat or come off mute if you are. Is Sally here with us?
Yes, I am here.
Is that okay? Happy with that answer?
Yes, I was. Thank you.
Great, excellent, thank you, and thanks for asking the question. I will now admit that it is a question that comes up probably more often than I would really like it to come up. So I'm glad you vocalised it, because frankly, it is a piece, and I think we are actually going to take the opportunity to use your question and do a little bit of social media work on the back of the AGM on that very topic. So thank you for getting that one in. I'll jump back. Alistair Curry. Again, unfortunately, I don't know if you're here, but Alistair put in a question about RYA Scotland doing to promote and increase cruising numbers in Scotland. Are there any targets for growth in cruising numbers of Scottish sailors? I'm going to hand that off to Peter.
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, I think when I touched upon the work that gets done through the Cruising General Purposes Committee, I mean, fundamentally, there is a huge amount of work done to increase or protect the playground, as we call it, to attract and maintain cruising numbers. It's not an easy one to promote and increase cruising numbers. There's lots of headwinds in the sport, as people have touched upon. But everything that we do within the Cruising and General Purposes Committee is about ensuring that we can attract and maintain everything around cruising. So whether that is working with particularly Scottish canals and inland waterways to maintain, and that generally, facilitates an awful lot of activity on the water and makes things easier. And we have got such a unique geography that cruisers are out and about wanting to explore an awful lot of that. There's not an area where you can focus and put activity into a specific hub that could generate cruising activity in the same kind of way. So we're certainly doing a lot of activity around that, and whether that's people, certainly cruising in Scotland, is that Scottish cruisers in Scotland, or lots of people visiting, and we see positive numbers of visitors coming to Scotland. But there aren't any specific targets that you can put in place. It's something that's incredibly difficult to monitor. We can't go out and measure everything that's happening in the water environment. But I just touched upon maybe some of the challenges that are being faced. Obviously, clearly there's There is challenges about the migration of people who are cruising, but fundamentally, the more people we get into participating at lower levels in dinghy sailing, the more it leads into cruising. It's a bit of a long-term investment. People don't generally go and start their sailing cruising in Scotland. They may go and start their sailing, but generally they will go and do it cruising in the Mediterranean. So we've got a competing kind of environment around people want to go and do the chartering or go and learn to sail potentially where they perceive the weather is nicer. Personally, and I've seen most of the world cruising. Scotland has some of the best cruising grounds in the world, something that we should be, and we do celebrate and promote. I think there's a little bit around the weather. We do have this bit about the perceived weather, and in the Cruising and General Purposes Committee, we constantly discussing what's causing it, and is it a perception? And there are challenges around that we have to kind of do. We spend a lot of time working with those third parties, Crown Estates and others. So there's lots of work getting done. We, as a community, need to continue to support sailing as a sport, because cruising and those people who end up cruising are dependent on those who come in to experience the sailing and get the enjoyment out of it, and to see them transition. And we just have to keep carrying on and protecting our playground, as we call it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Peter. I think actually Neil indicated you want to just chip in as well. Neil, do you want to just chuck in?
Yeah, I think it's one of these areas where we're our own success in avoiding the need to have licensing for all of our boats and avoiding the need to have mandatory qualifications mean that we as the RYA, in protecting those rights, allow people access to the waters. And I think that's often overlooked. And if you go to see whether it's the Mediterranean countries or inland waterways in Europe or most of the other nations around the world, we're quite unique in that. And I think that is testament to a lot of very good behind the scenes work that takes place. And by doing that, we've got all the Facebook groups and full marinas, and most of those people are not members of the RYA. Should we be upset by that? Well, in some ways that is successful because they are on the waters and enjoying things. And long may it continue that we fight for our liberty to use the waters, and thanks to everybody who does that. Can we do more for attracting more people to cruise and use our waters? Of course we can. And any ideas above and beyond to promote the sport, I think it behoves us to do that. But I think let's not overlook the fact that people can come here without the burden of ICCs or other qualifications that you need even to go on holiday. So thank you.
Okay, thanks, Neil. That's good. Covered that one, and then I've got 2 questions from Derek. We'll do the easier of the 2 of them, I think. First, are there plans for RYA Scotland to reintroduce a conference aimed at instructors and RTCs? I touched on this earlier and a couple of others, but anyway, Finlo, you're going to give us an answer on this topic.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. So RTCs, recognised training centres. In the past, there has been a specific conference for that. And I think the answer combines some of what Hannah was saying with some of what Chris was saying. So we've got the Aspire programme, and elements of the Aspire programme are around wanting to provide sort of regional delivery to allow instructors, coaches, RTCs the opportunity to engage with ourselves to undertake, for example, various upskilling, CPD, get advice, get information for their own practice or their own training centre. Hannah mentioned about rethinking how we deliver a conference, what it's for, who it's for, how we deliver it, where we deliver it, and almost certainly elements of that will be of relevance to instructors and training centres in how they deliver and how they sort of engage. So it could well be we bring aspects of Aspire into that conference. So will we recreate the instructor and RTC conference of the past? Unlikely. Will we engage with instructors and RTCs through other formats and forums? Absolutely.
Okay, thanks, Finlo. Derek, are you on? I've had a wee look at the list. I didn't see your name, but I don't know if you're sitting on the same.
Yeah, I am here. I'm sort of. I've not been looking and I've been dealing with daughters, so my apologies for not following much. I will go back and look at it on the YouTube channel. The reason behind that question is that in discussion with other training centres, we feel that we're missing out in quite a considerable amount of training and CPD. The point behind it was that many years ago, when I first got involved with the RYA, so we're talking 10 years, we used to have these conferences over 2 days over a weekend, and they were very well turned out. The rooms were stowed out. I'm sure that your colleagues may remember that. That has since changed quite considerably, and I'm not going to use the C word because that's we're well past that now. But there is a possibility that bringing that style of training back would encourage instructors that we know are out there but we never hear from and are doing their own thing. Would encourage them to come forward again. And we have the trainers in Scotland. We've got very good trainers in Scotland who are sitting, not doing an awful lot, but we have talked about this many times of trying to bring in some sort of CPD. That system, those conferences worked. The day one was instructors, day two was centres, and information was passed. I know that it's very difficult to use to get South to come up here, but you are in a position to force that. If you want to, you can force their hand and say, "We're doing this. We need support," and invite up the training team to come up and do it. So so that's kind of where I was coming from.
No, got you, Derek. 100%. I was definitely at quite a few of those in the day when my tickets were all still active, and I do remember them. But we'll totally take on your point. Thanks for expanding on your question. Actually, it gives some better context. We'll take that on board and Finlo can think about that, how we deliver the. I don't think it's unlikely to be exactly how it was, but even those are different from how it used to be like 20 years ago. So we want to make sure that we are supporting, and that was the key point about your question actually, is supporting our instructors in Scotland, and that's what we're all about. So understood, loud and clear.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. And your other question is, I'm so glad I got so glad we got someone on the board that's I feel it's all over this topic, but it's quite a technical one. But anyway, go for it. With the withdrawal of the MGN 280, what guidance and support is RYA Scotland providing training centres regarding coding of training boats? And I'm so glad that Chris Floyd's with us, who knows a couple of things about this. Chris, do you want to take this one for me, please?
Yeah, thanks. Excellent question, Derek. Excellent. As a generalization, just in its current form, I think we need to very quickly say this is the government through the MCA giving us legislation and regulations that we need to follow in different aspects of our work or within some of the training centres. So depending on where we are, it may be appropriate, it may not be. But I think that in answer to the question is that we have Workboat Code 3 currently in place. We're waiting for the Sport and Pleasure Code to come out. And I think that once the Sport and Pleasure Code come out, then we as the RYA within Scotland can actually put together a education piece. We can actually get together and discuss these and have some presentation around who's going to be affected by it, and actually come up with some roundtable discussions which will help training centres to achieve what they need, how they need to comply with the law. I would say that's the easiest system. We are currently waiting for the Sport and Pleasure Code to come out, and therefore the only one at the minute is the draft version, which will have a variety of changes in, and therefore it's not, I wouldn't deliver anything related to it at this moment in time. When the Workboat Code 3 came out, then it was very obvious that there was an education piece needed to help people understand what was actually involved and to actually look at the realistic way to deal with it. And having sat with the feedback within that Workboat Code 3 and the feedback with the Sport and Pleasure Code, then it'll be the same. It will, and how it affects different centres. So I think I personally believe that is the way forwards. We get the Sport and Pleasure Code out, and we then sit down and run some training education pieces.
Thanks for that, Chris. Okay, so I think that there has to be a wider picture view here, and it's perhaps something that you and I can talk about offline rather than go into the technical details. The main point is that from the Workboat Association, from the surveyors themselves, from SCMS, from various other houses, is that you will not be able to code a vessel for training under MGN 280 because it is a sport and leisure code. It is not a workboat code, and the training boats are workboats, and that is how the MCA are looking at it, and that's how it's going across. I got caught out with this last week, and this is why it's suddenly come to the forefront here. And we're under Workboat Code 3, and that was a real struggle, a very expensive struggle for a boat that's immaculate and very well looked after. So I think there's and I spoke with various centres as well, and they are under the misapprehension that MGN 280 is the way forward, and that they're going to just carry on running on it, and that is not what's coming from industry and coming from the top, and apparently the RYA have known about it for quite some time and just have done nothing about it or not telling anybody about it.
I think there is a statement on the RYA website that was put out in February, which kind of points to the progression currently and the route that they're busy working on and the feedback that they've been putting in within the codes. Yep, definitely. I saw your posts and the discussion on Facebook, and yep, more than happy to get involved and have a discussion. And yep, as I say, excellent question, and it will help other training centres as we go forwards. The snag at this moment in time definitely is who will apply in the sport and pleasure, and we can't do anything until they're really sat. But if people are going forwards in Workboat Code 3, I'm very happy to help discuss at any stage.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Chris.
Okay, no worries.
Okay, Derek, thanks for both questions.
Yeah.
Probably more on the technical side, but thanks, Chris, for being here to take that one. I'm under AOCB. I don't have any business noted. What I have done in past years, and I'm happy to do again, is that as we are over 90 minutes, nearly 100 minutes in here, there's still quite a few of you with us, and I appreciate your time. I will open the floor. If you've got any question you would like to raise, I've got all my excellent experts with me, so I feel brave. So if you have any questions, if you want to come off mute or stick them in the chat, failing that, I will move to close, but I'll just give it a few seconds to see if anyone's got any questions they'd like to bring up. That's your reward for being with us for 100 minutes. I'm not seeing anything. So on that basis, I will move to close the meeting. I want to thank the board members. I've done a tremendous amount of work. I think that would be obvious to anyone who was involved in this meeting or watches it afterwards. I also want to thank the staff who do an absolute power of work. We're very lucky. We've got super talented, passionate staff, and I'm always thankful for that. We also have a huge range, as well as the board, of other volunteers. A number of these names have been mentioned throughout the presentations, and maybe it's the volunteers and others that give the impression that we're a much bigger organisation than we are. And our partners, a number of partners, maybe call out obviously Sport Scotland for their continued funding. Without them, we would be struggling. But it's more than funding; it's a proper a partnership. And obviously, our relationship with RYA UK is as strong as it's ever been. And so I'm thankful to all of these organisations, all of you members in clubs, the roles that you form. A lot of you hold committee roles in clubs, and I'm eternally grateful for, frankly, everything that we're doing together. We've made some great strides, and together we'll continue to shape the future of boating in Scotland. But at that, I will draw the meeting to a close here. Thank you very much, everybody. I really appreciate your time this evening.